Okay, we are now live. We're just going to have a little. You and I are just going to have a little small talk until the I start seeing the numbers pop up. And YouTube is letting people know right now that I'm live, and I'm going to start seeing the numbers come up. I don't think you can see the numbers from your end, but when I get to a certain number, then we'll start. But until then, let's just continue the conversation. When you said apex, tell me what do you mean by that? In that in that particular area that we're talking about,
I
what
just
is the apex?
wokeism rose its ugly head with me in 1977 when the girls in the audience would confront me because I would use the word he, referring to all mankind, rather than he and she. And they would obstruct my speech. They were like a speed bump to me. So,
Yeah.
it was bad then. And it really, I had to rethink everything. That cosmology will make you mentally ill as an intellectual or anything. But that kind of thinking, that was 45 years ago. So you can imagine what it is now. Wokeism is totally embedded in all departments and the legal system, and certainly
Yes.
academia, totally academia. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah. One of my goals was to teach part time at Florida Tech, actually starting this fall. And I wasn't able to get even an adjunct teaching job because I didn't get a vaccine. So that automatically put me out of the ruling. I had several conversations with people in HR, a person in the department chairperson, and when it came right down to it, they wouldn't hire me. And I was that far, and I had planned for many years that if I move to Florida, I want to teach part time at FIT, Florida Institute of Technology, also known as Florida Tech, and teach the psych of business, psych of career development, and that kind of thing. And so those plans were halted quite abruptly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good
Let
people
me
get fired. Yes.
let me introduce you to the audience. We have a group that's on, and the numbers will grow. Good evening, everybody. This is George Bruno, as you know, and I'm speaking with Dr. Karen Kellock, who I have been in correspondence with. Karen, I think you and I have been chatting back and forth for at least 5 years, about 5 years now, and always had interesting correspondence. And I think the time is right for you to be kind of unleashed on the world through my channel. Give us a little background of your education, your credentials, and such. I know them, but the audience doesn't. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have a master's in political science, a master's in art history, and a PhD in political psychology, and then a postdoctoral at the UCI Medical School on systems theory. And I developed the systems theory further than it was early writings on how other people keep us sick. And I was given a federal grant, NIMH and NIAAA, to write out a theory of pathological systems, how people make us sick, the family surrounding the schizophrenic or the alcoholic or the compulsive eater. What are those interlocking devices? In other words, mental illness is not inside the person, it is a maladaptation to his environment. So you're looking at him more like an animal in his niche. And it's all explained then when you watch the behavior of the others. It's all explained. I wrote my PhD dissertation on the wife of the alcoholic syndrome, how when he gets sober, despite her years of complaining about it, she tries to slip him up or gets drunk herself or decompensates. In other words, the system does not stay the same. If one member changes, the others will change too. And the only way to adapt to a sick system is to become sick yourself. How does that work out? Look at the schizophrenia on Family Day when the family comes. So it's not meant to offend anybody. It's a wonderful theory, systems theory. You look at it as a machine and change one member and the others change. Or get sober yourself if you're an alcoholic and go back to the old system and you will be drunk again. You have to learn to stay out of old systems. So that systems theory was my specialty. And then I went on sabbatical for about 30 years to write out the theory. And the result is 120 books on psychology.
That's incredible. I'm aware of your massive body of work, and want to give you credit for that. I want to give you credit for that. Absolutely. I remember at least 35 years ago, I was a fan of systems theory within the family, and the guy who made it kind of popular was John Bradshaw. If you remember John Bradshaw,
Yes.
What a lovely man. But I'll never forget his series on PBS. This is before PBS went full woke. He had a series called The Family. It was John Bradshaw on The Family, and he was kind of a leader in the adult children of alcoholics and children of alcoholics studies. But when he did his family systems theory, I'll never forget him being on stage, Karen, and he had a mobile. And, like a lot of people don't know what mobiles are. It's a thing that's hanging, and there's like one piece, and then there's three pieces hanging off of that, and then there's two or three pieces hanging off of that piece. And it was a life-size mobile of a mother and a father. It was hanging, and each piece of this thing was like 5 to 6 foot tall, and it was hanging alongside of him on the stage. And underneath the mother and father were, children. And he says, watch what happens when I touch any one of these pieces. He would just touch it, and the whole mobile would start rocking and spinning. He says, when one of the components of the family is touched, it affects all of the family. That kind of reminds me of what you said, the systems theory.
Yeah, there's three principles: wholeness, non-summity, and equifinality. Non-summity means everything is fit together and nothing happens without a reaction from the other. And wholeness means that the system itself is greater than the sum of its parts. In other words, it's a personality of itself. It transcends the parts. And equifinality means it's going to end up the same way if you don't change the parts. You get sober, go back to the family again. Yeah. It's so strong. The effects of the environment, extremely strong. Mm-hmm. That most psychology looks inside. What's wrong with him?
That reminds me of this group I believe it's called Al-Anon, and that's what family members who have a alcoholic, father or the wives, whatever, that kind of thing. And it teaches them how to cope with the alcoholic or drug abusing family member. And they go to weekly support meetings. I mean, the first time I heard about that, I was like, wow, is that really necessary? But
I think so.
with your systems theory, how does an alcoholic affect the whole family?
Horrible. It's a disaster. It's the devil coming through your mate. I wrote my PhD thesis on the wife of the alcoholic syndrome, and then I married an alcoholic. So that's weird. He was sober. He was a Mormon. I had no idea. And after 3 years, he resumed his drinking career, i.e., he slipped. I had no idea. Yeah. And he became a monster, a totally different person. It was terrifying to be involved with somebody. It's like the devil coming up through your mate in your own home. It's like being in a war zone in your own home. And for a woman who's sensitive, it's okay. The wife of the alcoholic gets sicker than him in maladaptation. She gets sicker, either more psychopathic or more alcoholic. The biggest reaction of a wife of an alcoholic is to get drunk herself.
Yes.
That's the biggest reaction. And to
Yes.
decompensate physical illness, the wife gets sicker living in that context, or the husband. It's unless you are going to separate and start a new life, but I mean, in that system, it's totally toxic.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you think Al-Anon just helps somebody cope, or can they go back to their family and share what they learned and help heal the family? How does a family uh, that is plagued by alcoholism or drug abuse, is there healing for a family like that?
What she does before Al-Anon, I was a member for many years. What she
Okay.
does before Al-Anon is fight with him. That's going to be just a grenade range. She learns through Al-Anon to release with love or hate, whatever, just release and disentangle from the reactions. Don't react because he's trying to make you crazy. He's calling you names, calling you ugly. It is like living with the devil. And her self-esteem plummets, plummets, plummets. It's a trauma. It's a traumatizing environment to live with somebody who's insulting your looks for a woman. So,
Yes.
so she does get uglier and uglier because it's love that makes a woman beautiful, really. And
Yes.
if she takes it on, then it becomes even more of a punching bag, and it's circular, and there's this massive decompensation. Now, when he gets sober, she has to fix herself because she's had to take over, you see, and she doesn't want to give up that dominant role right now. Not after he did all that he did to her as an alcoholic, which is, I mean, it's called anosognosia. You've lost your higher self. It's the lower self that takes over from the addiction, the poison.
So, in a sense, she's becoming a parent, a sick parent, because
Yeah,
she's putting her sick
exactly, yeah,
husband to bed. She's mopping up his vomit. She's
yeah,
sweeping up the shards of glass from the glasses that he dropped, and sometimes she's patching up his wounds as he
yeah,
cracked the side of his head on a piece of furniture or something like that. So she becomes his mother. I know I was dealing with a guy who was going through a divorce, and one of the things, and this was a very sensitive issue for this man, his wife would tell him, she would say, "I am your wife, I am not your mother."
yeah, yeah. Because of course he wants his mother. Maybe his mother is a better housekeeper too. But yeah, now, yeah, she has to give up that role, and she doesn't want to. She, first of all, he's very needy as an alcoholic. There are some women who will marry paraplegics. They want to be needed. They want somebody who's vulnerable. So when he starts to get sober, there's going to be a big reverberation. And if he stays sober, there will be a decompensation in her.
Yes.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
there are people who collect broken people,
Yeah.
and when that broken person finally gets their crap together, they're no longer needed, because what attracted them to their mate was the neediness.
Well, we identify ourselves against the ground of somebody else. So if they're A, we're B, okay? And now they're no longer A. And they don't need us. If the whole raison d'etre was to be needed, it's a very scary feeling for the wife. And she may decompensate into alcoholism. That's very common. They were in Al-Anon, now they're in AA.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Well, okay, there was this thing that I used to say in my lectures. A woman who married a daughter of an alcoholic who married 3 alcoholics in succession, saw her pattern. So then she married a sober Mormon who then became alcoholic. Her
Mm.
behavior predisposed or set it up. See, figure ground, figure ground. It's a gestalt. It's mystical. Systems theory is mystical, and it intercepts with archetypal psychiatry, the archetypes, elicit response. When he's an alcoholic, he's a very low archetype. When he's a king and sober, he's a very handsome, high archetype. It sets out different responses, see? And if she's a low archetype, there you have the decompensation.
Yeah. This is a great talk, and we can talk about alcoholism and the family forever. But the topic for tonight, for the audience, and for those that are just joining, I'm speaking with my special guest, Dr. Karen Kellock, and we have corresponded for, I'd say, about 5 years via email. I have found your emails always to be very compelling and provocative as well. There's times where you brought some strong things out of me, but I knew you were right. The topic of tonight's talk is called "What the Bleep Happened to Men and Women." Answer that question, Dr. Karen Kellock.
Well, I like to watch World War II documentaries so I can see what people are supposed to look like. The men were handsome, the women were thin and pretty. It was a totally different time, and
wow.
They've lost all that. They've become ordinary, pulsified, bloated, distorted, lopsided, debauched. The family has been disintegrating. They've been inculcated with a bunch of woke and dirty stuff in the schools. There was no more decency after World War II. People just got taken it for granted. And that changed the personality of the culture. And so along with that, when women became easy as feminists, men lost respect for them because men want to chase women. They don't want to be chased. That reverses the sex roles. That puts the woman in the masculine role. And then he just becomes a houseboy, basically. She's out working. She's the one with the legal degree, everything has reversed. And they may think that he can be a house husband and all that, but a lot has changed. And it is about this thing, women chasing men, taking on the masculine role. It's so easy on the computer to do it.
Yes.
But it's not the way it's supposed to be at all. No. He's supposed to chase her. She's supposed to rely on God to do her work and to become who she's supposed to be. Then he has an eye for her as his wife. Then she chooses or deselects or whatever. That's how it's supposed to be. Not women chasing men. And then in order to catch them, they have to have sex with them. And then, where's the mystery anymore? Where's the decency and the home-loving type of attitude? There's just loss of respect, and then all you have is serial fornication.
Yeah.
And broken relationships.
So men and women that are out there dating, we'll say, are just encountering one broken person after another.
Well, yes, because sex is for married people, and to have illicit sex like that, one after another, broken relationships, maybe being brokenhearted, rejection, loss of respect. That is mental illness. That's mental illness. Right. We're supposed to be in a loving environment. That's what brings man to his highest. This brings man and woman to their lowest.
Wow. I have dealt with a lot of men in my counseling and coaching, and I have frequently said, you can't friend your way into a woman's life. You can't friend your way into her pants. You can't feminize yourself in order to make yourself attractive to a woman. You don't become more like a woman to get a woman. Oh, yeah. Amplify your manhood, and women, which of course will automatically create polarity, which will attract women to you. Women today are making themselves like men and not being feminine. And some of the women that I have dealt with, I said, just put on a darn dress, will you? Enough of the yoga pants and everything's spilling out.
Oh yeah, yeah. The the biggest thing about women becoming more like men is the adversarial nature. They become tyrannical in marriage. They pick fights. They bring up the
Yes.
past. It's brinksmanship. Really, competition. Competition is opposite to love. I mean, because they're taught to be like that to look down on their husbands because of the everybody loves Raymond. That's one, and looking down on the man.
Competition is the opposite of love. Wow. I never heard that before.
Well, women become adversarial in marriage. 70% of the people wanting divorce are women, and they pick fights. The man wants tranquility, and out of the blue, she picks a fight. Does that ring a bell? Or I've certainly heard that from a lot of men.
Oh, absolutely. Here we have a guy in the audience, Chip Sturman. He says the destruction of role models is part of the problem. We have watered down the masculine and feminine roles in an attempt to create a better society, but the result is the collapse of our society.
Absolutely. Who's going to protect us? Not those beta males.
Right.
It's very serious. And not only that, feminizing the military, making them walk around in red heels. It's all about woke and pronouns. It's very scary right now, very. And the whole world is laughing at us because they have real
Yes.
men in their military.
Yes. Yeah. The
And they're
United
doing
States
cool
has
stuff.
become the United States has become the laughing stock of strong traditional countries.
Yes.
Why do you think I was talking to you before we went live? I know a woman who said that a woman who's dating, who's out there in the dating world, and she says, "Why does every man I meet have an effeminate affect to his voice? Like they all sound very effeminate. What is going on with that?"
Well, part of it is what I was telling you about the cosmology, the well worked out cosmology for 100 years intended to bring us down is oneism, that we are all one, that the sexes are one, that there's no division between races, sexes. And of course, we all know that's bull. The races are different, the sexes are different, and so they don't want the hyper male. That's too different. He's got to come down. And they don't want the real feminine female. No. She's got to become more masculine so that they're more oneism. Not only that, it's sodomism. Sodomism is the theory that homosexuality is superior to heterosexuality. Not just that it's equal, but that it's superior. So it's partially that. They want to take on a more feminine that way too.
I've never been a big fan, even as a child, hearing about the melting pot of America, and I hated that because I enjoy who I am as a man. I enjoy who I am with my ethnicity, and I don't want to be like anyone else. I'm not trying to be like anyone else, and I like the idea of Italian neighborhoods, Irish neighborhoods, Polish neighborhoods. I always thought that was a great thing. So this, like where we are one, that seems like the melting pot theory seems like it moved from ethnicity and country of origin now to gender. There's a melting pot of like there's no difference between men and women. Yes, there is.
Obvious and yin yang and black and white, birds and bees, totally necessary for survival. It couldn't be more opposite.
Your audio just went out a little bit.
Let's see, what do I do? Can you hear me now?
Just hold on a second here. Just stay where you are and let me figure this out. All right, try again.
Okay, we're talking about the yin yang.
There we go. Go ahead. We got
Okay.
we got the audio back. Go ahead.
They want us all alike. It's a 100-year plan called the Polarity plan. For example, the races. They want all the brown races coming into to white territory like America was, and a lot of us going out so that the whole world is like a medium brown. It's called the Polarity plan. That is their plan that way. And they want to bring America down. So the way they're doing that is to make the men pansies and the women manly. And it turned off the men. So now the women are becoming lesbians. I mean, everything is going to bring us down big time because the family is the basis of a survived a nation that can be strong and survive. But they're taking the family all apart. And now they're giving operations to kids without parental approval.
Yes.
Totally separating you from your kids. They're a ward of the state. We're coming into communism. That is their goal, communism. They are basically commies, the women and the men of this new age, of this woke age.
So what you're saying is the role of our enemy is to destroy the family. And if they can destroy the family, if they can destroy the individual man, the individual woman,
they want to destroy
the collective
America
family,
by destroying the family. They want to bring us down.
destroy America.
They've been jealous of all.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been jealous of us all these years. So they're going to bring us down by destroying the family and the sexes and us individually.
Karen, last year, there's a magazine called Men's Health. And last year they had an article with men in dresses, literally like manly looking guys, but they were wearing dresses. I'm not talking kilts, like a Scottish kilt, literally like a knit dress. And I was thinking, this is mainstream now. This is not like some weird magazine. This is Men's Health magazine.
That's the main fashion show of this year and next year. Stuff like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only that, the fashions look like homeless people, purposely looking like homeless people. Now, what is the end goal of that? To bring us down, to degrade us so that they want us poor. They want us to accept it or something. But this latest fashion show, the fashion show of 2023, I can't remember the name of it. They all look like homeless people with holes in their clothes.
Yes.
So it seems like it's all a device or something to get us to lower our expectations, to lose hope.
I know a guy who commented on YouTube and he ended up losing his channel. This was a guy who was making about $30,000 a month, making a lot of money on YouTube. And he was talking about there's a Hollywood actress, very pretty lady, and she had at the time, the son was 5 years old, and she was transitioning this son to be a girl. And he said he called it child abuse. That's child abuse.
Absolutely.
He ended up getting canceled. All his payment platforms got canceled. Everywhere on social media, he got canceled. Even his bank said, withdraw your money. We can no longer do business with you.
They all work together. Somebody flips the lever and then they all work together. And you can be fired by saying that men can't have babies. That's the new line of the Democrat Party. Men can have babies. And if you dispute this in any way, you'll be canceled. That's how unbelievable this is. And dangerous.
Yeah. Where does this lead to? I mean, when I look at the trajectory of where it's going and we follow this to its logical conclusion, where does this all end?
It all depends who gets in. Believe me, there's no lukewarm anymore. There's no in between. We'll either go into total borderless communism or we will get back with, deregulation, getting the energy going again, and 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 no more defunding the police, getting crime off the streets. It's just there's no in between. It all depends what happens in the next month, and then in 2024, because if
Yeah.
the leader gets in there and starts pulling this stuff, leaving the borders wide open and defunding the police, we can't do anything unless
Yeah.
you teach him. And even then, who would we have left? It's very scary.
You wrote a book. Help me with the name of it. Something about the superior man, or how is that? What is that
Manual,
title?
Manual for Superior Men. Yeah.
Okay.
And that title makes them mad, makes people mad, because that cosmology says, oh, there is no superior or inferior. But there is. It's not how you're born, your skin color. It's your behavior, aspirations. There is a calibration. We aren't all alike. So Manual for Superior Men, and men they don't like. Oh, it should be men and women. No, it's men. Men refers to both sexes. So yes, the Manual for Superior Men is about 1,300 pages. That's the main theory. And then the other 119 books are sort of sub books of that.
For those of us, for those people who just joined, I'm talking with Dr. Karen Kellock, author of 120 books, former professor, PhD in clinical psychology, postdoctorate work, has given a lot of thought to this stuff. Let me ask you this. There is a show that has gone around, it's been pretty popular, called What is a Man? And for every 10 people that they asked, there were 10 different explanations. Now, I love looking at old definitions. I have a Webster's dictionary from like 1871. And every now and then I flip through it and I have a little fun. I look up man, woman, family, marriage, things like that. And back in 1871, it seems like they knew what all that stuff was. To this day, the common answer is, well, that depends. So I'll ask you, Dr. Karen Kellock, what is a man?
It's defined biologically. And then from there, he also has physical and mental characteristics that are different from the female. That's about all I can say. He's just totally different from the female. And there are definite characteristics physically and mentally to the male. Definite mental differences. But the feminists don't want to see that. They want to see
It's not just physical differences. There's emotional and mental differences, right, isn't there?
Totally. Every system is totally different, opposite, and that's why it's good. That's a polarity there.
Yes,
it's a good thing. It's not good for man to be alone. God wants us to be married. Why? Because of this. It's a polarity. It's like 1 and 1 equals 20,000, not 1 and 1 equals 2. It's far more than that, because he planned it.
Do you think we are devolving as a species?
Yes.
Or what is happening? Again, kind of going back to the title of tonight's talk, what the bleep happened to men and women. What is happening with us?
It's intentional. It happened after World War II. Like I told you, I like to watch those documentaries to see what people look like, because you don't see that anymore. After World War II, they brought in soy and all the food and fast food. We were just eating natural food, organic food from the farms, and meat, and everything was normal. But then it became processed and filled with so many chemicals. They're deliberately dumbing us down through the sprays in the air. They want us fat and dumb. No woman has such a tiny waist as Elizabeth Taylor in 1952. You don't see that anymore because everybody is sequestering toxins into fatty tissue to save the heart. So people have become puffy. So we look totally different. We're sad. We are divorced, which is a disaster.
Yes.
We're serial fornicators. We've lost our children, or they've been brainwashed. On and on and on. The church is gone, or it's been fallen because the women have taken over with paganism. The false churches everywhere. So what do we have? It shows in the way we look and how we feel. I guess one solution is really good nutrition. You know, try to attack it that way to keep your head above water somewhat. But
Yes.
the sprays in the air and all the stuff we got to deal with and hear on the news, and people are mean. And I guess they have a right to be. People are mean. It's hard dealing with that. During World War II, they had community. People didn't have that in their own community.
Yes.
Now it's kind of hard to find even friends, or most people are frenemies. They are frenemies more than, and not easily trusted. They come and go. So it's a different life altogether. And you can really see it. The men can't take over because if they do, the woman will come up against them. The woman may. If a man is for Trump, how many women divorced him? If he starts to become strong, and she's the strong one, so she divorces them. A study has shown that with female groups, once they start to get divorced, the others want to get divorced too, to fit the group, which is unbelievable that a woman would destroy her own home like that to be part of their female group. But that's all part of the takedown through the women, through the children that rise up against you and have more power than you do, or whatever, the schools, or whatever.
Right. And we put the kids in kind of state-sponsored indoctrination centers, also known as the public school.
Oh, horrible. They are debauched. I mean, it's horrible how they talk and everything. In Borrego Springs, I knew a high school teacher said they watched DVDs all day. No math or science. They just watch DVDs all day. So that's becoming common in California.
Wow. I like what you said about watching World War II era films and news footage where men looked like men, women looked like women. I saw somebody post it, I forget what year it was. It was either a World War II era film of beachgoers, people on the beach, and you didn't see one obese person. And everybody was trim or had weight proportionate to height.
I think I know that exact frame you're talking about. They were very thin. And it's because the body doesn't have to sequester poisons into fat adipose tissue to save the heart. People getting lumpy. There's protuberances. That's just all these toxins we're dealing with, which is intentional.
Yeah. It weakens us. Now, of course, you said something about one of the ways to take down a family is to affect the women. And of course, I find that, like you said, women account for 70% of divorces, that type of thing. And then, there's I heard someone say a woman has fake boobs, fake nails, fake hair, fake, the list, the fake everything. But she wants a real man. She demands a real man.
Yeah. Yeah. She's out of whack. That's right. She demands a real man. But if he is a real man, will she not fight him? She becomes adversarial. The demanding nature is feminism. See, the feminine, she's supposed to relax into her feminine. She's supposed to be chaste. Just relax. But the woman is taken over. She's supposed to fight
Yes.
for her man. Yeah. And they brag about it. I'm just like a man. I could be just like a man. I'll get him. He will submit, whatever. And it never works because men don't want that. It goes the opposite way.
I've joked around with some women just to kind of poke at them a little bit. And, the women that say, I can do anything a man can do. And I'm like, can you grow a beard?
Yeah. 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 Women are masculine. And I'll tell you, they are also very snippy to each other. That edge, they're even getting pugnacious to each other. Physical fight. Okay. That's how they're borrowing the male personality, and it's not at all attractive. The reason they can't lose weight is because they've mistaken bigness for power, where Einstein proved that less is more. Most creative energy comes in least mass. The true power is being a tiny queen, not being a loud, boisterous, masculine go-getter. Although that may be, some men may say that they like that. But it doesn't work the way it should. Okay?
Right.
Adversarial does not work in a marriage. Adversarial, one-upsmanship, brinksmanship, gossiping, talking to your lady friends about your husband, that's really bad. Very common. Very common.
Yeah.
Even the sex life. They even talk like that in Al-Anon, I will have to say, which is bad.
Right.
Yeah. We're talking about somebody's sobriety could be hurt by that. Women talk to each other.
Well, I heard the story of someone say this, that a woman goes on a date with a guy, a first date, and she spends 3 hours talking about how much of a strong, independent woman she is, and then at the end of the date, she's perplexed as to why he wants to go Dutch and have her pay her own way, because she just spent 3 hours telling him how much of a man she is.
That's exactly it. Everything gets reversed, and they don't work. But women don't want to be sweet little ladies. They're put down by their feminist friends if they're sweet little ladies, like the old days, baking cookies.
Now, what you're not saying is weak. Like you're not saying that a sweet little lady is a weak lady. You're saying you can still be a sweet lady and be strong and still
probably more power than ever, because returning to Einstein's principle, most creative energy comes in least mass. Less is really more. These are tiny queens, Lilliputian. They ruled their family. In early California, the men were giants. The women were tiny, and they ruled the big men. It has nothing to do with size, but that's why women can't lose weight. The book on that issue is called Fat is a Feminist Issue, on why women can't lose weight. They fear lost power.
Wow. They feel that their mass gives them influence.
Exactly. And it doesn't. It's the opposite.
Wow.
Be a tiny queen.
Interesting. I heard Dr. Anthony Campolo many years ago talk about power versus authority. And he said the perfect example of that was a big mob boss was in court, and a man of big stature, and his mother, and this is a guy who could order the death of people. He could order hits on people, but his mother was in the courtroom, and he said something, kind of a smart aleck response to one of the attorneys and the judge, and his little 90-pound mother stood up and said, "You respect the judge, you're in court," and he quieted right down. Here's this big guy,
Yeah,
and this little 90-pound mother
that's
just
right.
just made him go like, just kind of
Yeah,
turn into like this, like, okay, mom, kind of thing. It was power and
yeah,
authority. He had the power, but she had authority.
yeah. Often that big mass is really just all stuck up physically and dense and unable to really, but it's just big. But there's no creativity, there's no juice that way. Electricity, no magnetism. It's just the Walking Dead.
You know what? I love the phrase magnetism, because I think we need to make magnetism great again. Right now, dating is like exchanging resumes. It's got nothing to do with magnetism. People talking about their accomplishments,
Oh yeah,
women identifying themselves by I'm vice president of this, I'm senior vice president of that, I'm director of this. I don't care. I don't care. Can you make dinner? And I say that jokingly. I'm not chauvinist. I'm not like that kind of guy. But when did dating become just exchanging resumes as opposed to let's talk, let's see if there is chemistry? What is chemistry with between men and women? Can you
chemistry
define
is
that?
how it's. Yeah, that's where it just works. It's synchronous rather than it hums rather than grates. You want to hum with the universe. It's all in synchrony rather than grating. That's dyssynchrony. Things don't work. Nothing works. But that
Mm.
chemistry has been negated by women trying to prove themselves for the last 30, 40 years. Out comes the resume. Not just sitting there allowing the chemistry to happen and enjoying the
Yes.
dinner silently, but getting out that resume and insisting to be called doctor or, titles and things. This has
Yes.
replaced little lady, a
Yes.
sweet little lady. Yeah. Oh, if you were a sweet little lady, they would put you down today. Uh, this has happened quite a bit. I see this. You're supposed to be strong. They punish that type of thing socially if you act like they did in the 50s.
It's funny. I joke around about the 1955 housewife, and sometimes I will post pictures on my social media of a dad coming home. There was a day when the dads wore like a fedora, and they had a suit and tie, and they carried a briefcase, that type of thing. And the dad would pull in his 1955 Buick, get out of the car. Mom would be at the front door. The kids were running to him. He would like kind of bend down, scoop up the kids, go in the front door, kiss his wife. She'd have, dinner ready. He would go and change his clothes into something more casual. And I would always put a little caption under it saying, "Look at these freaks." Because that is freaky today. It's weird to see
Yeah,
a an intact family. I mean,
I know.
families used to even as like as much as I hate television, families at least, like, for instance, I remember one of the things that I liked on television was a show called American Idol. It reminded me of the old-fashioned variety shows back in the 60s, which, every act was a different act. It might be a singer or someone who juggles or, something like that. And American Idol was the one show that brought my family all together. It was on Tuesday nights. I made the popcorn. I might have like ordered a pizza, and it brought us together. And we
Yeah,
were all like voting. The kids were voting for this act, and I was voting on this other act, and mom was voting on that act. And it was very. This was in the like I didn't allow my kids to have TVs in their bedrooms. I wasn't allowed to have a TV in my bedroom. There was one TV in the house, and that was in the what we call the living room. And you pretty much watched what Dad wanted to watch, and you were happy with it. You might complain, but you were happy with it. And Dad and Mom set the rules. Now the kids seem to run the family.
Yes, they do. The parents are obedient to the kids, and they're afraid of them. And if they punish them, they could lose them. The state's involved now.
Yes.
But for the same reason you're saying, I watch Leave It to Beaver every day. And it is surrealistic how different. That's the way the family was organized, dinner on time. The sons were so respectful in how they talked to the parents. They were immediately nipped in the bud if they weren't. It's just like you haven't seen that reality, and it is so refreshing to see it, that it did exist in 1962, at least. Yeah, nowadays it's not like that at all.
When did I'm trying to think of when men started getting stupid on television. Even though I like things like the Munsters, funny, but Herman Munster was a buffoon. He was,
Yes.
and I don't think there was, when all the other shows were Father Knows Best and where Dad was the head of the house, then all of a sudden a buffoon disguised as like a Frankenstein with a freaky looking family kind of thing, and he was goofy as hell. It seems like that might have been the gateway drug to the goofy husband, the goofy father.
Yeah, that could have been a gateway. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes.
My other favorite show is The Rifleman.
Chuck Connors.
That's an incredible show. I mean, that shows a real man, and his son. He's loving with his son, and yeah. But after that era, it went downhill for men. They were then buffoons, and the women became strong, and everybody emulates it. They put men down all the time. It is a racist country. It persecutes white males. That's how it is racist, really. They are the most persecuted group. Yeah.
Yeah. For those that have just joined, and I notice our numbers have grown, I'm talking with Dr. Karen Kellock, PhD in clinical psychology, author of 120 books. One of those books is called Manual for the Superior Man. Did you say that there's also a book on feminism caused fatness or something? What is that?
I was mentioning a book from the 70s called Fat is a Feminist Issue, and it shows scientifically why women cannot lose weight. They're afraid of losing power. They want to dominate with their mass, so they stay fat. That is why they stay fat. And I find that fascinating.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Fat is a feminist issue. It's on Amazon.
What is your favorite book that you wrote?
I think Boot on Neck, about the tyranny in relationships and in society, and the problems in overcoming ridicule and things so that you can realize your genius on earth. Everybody has a potential in a specific area. Everybody's a genius at something, but you have to overcome so much in society to realize that. So that's what really the work is about. It's got a formula. All disease is obstruction, all recovery is elimination, and all success is attraction, once having eliminated it. The three obstructions are people, habit, and food. And without that, you snap to your goal waiting in the wings. Get rid of the obstruction, and you come to your goal. That's the formula for all the books in theory.
It seems like that there is there's a lot of inversion going on. Not only moral inversion, flipping everything. Everything is the opposite of what it is. Men are becoming women. Women are becoming men. Good is bad. Bad is good. Up is down. It's not only a socioeconomic melting pot, it's a gender melting pot, it's a philosophy melting pot. We're all supposed to be the same. And what's happening is it's you remember Crayola crayons. They had the big box of crayons and it had a little sharpener in the front of the box. And there was, I believe, 64 different colors. And if you left it near a windowsill and the sun was shining on it, all the crayons would melt together into one color. It's almost as if they're putting the heat on and trying to make everybody one. And when did this start? Number one. Number two, is it about the time that we started hearing the phrase unisex?
Unisex, yes, possibly. I believe it started around 1918. A society in America came up with this cosmology that would replace Christianity and become a worldview that we're all one, no more persecution, no more differences, no more rich America and poor third world. We would all be equal, and it would be run by a communist system. That would be the operating system. And from that has come all these other subsets and narratives and talking points that keep us, oh, we're all one. Nobody's any better than anybody else, even though they've worked all their life and the other guy didn't work at all. There's no calibration of reality anymore. And that really spurred people on before, but that's all been lost. People don't have that. They don't have fathers to spur them on, for one thing. Or any encouragement in the schools. Yeah, just be debauched and you can make it in life. That's it. Sex has replaced potential and good hard work, tenacity, achieving goals.
Sex has replaced hard work, tenacity, and achieving goals.
There's always been sex, of course, but it's become compulsive. It's become number one. And there's no more self-discipline to close it out because it's okay. Just do what you want. Do whatever you want. That's the attitude. So without self-restraint, genius doesn't come out because it's man's appetitive nature that drains all that off, either for sex or alcohol or drugs. It drains all that off. If that is controlled, then you focus like a rod of power on your genius, and then you realize your goals. You have to control one to get to the other. You can't just give into it, so to speak.
Speaking to the audience here, if you have any questions for Dr. Karen Kellock, please put them in the chat and I will ask her that question. If you have any questions about any of these issues tonight, please ask in the chat and we will address it. Let's go to another topic. Let's go to money. What is happening? What the bleep is happening with money and men being breadwinners?
Okay, that's very important. It used to be women chose a mate based on his ability to provide and protect her. That's what we need, money. He provides, and she makes a beautiful environment for him, a loving environment. And that's the way it is. And that encourages him to provide more. That makes a man come up in society if he has a loving home to come home to that's neat and orderly and clean and evokes thought and it allows growth. You see, that's what you call tranquility. Men want tranquility in the home. Do they have that now? Is that a common thing, do you think? I don't think it is.
I think it's rare.
Rare, yeah. And without that, a man really can't make it the way he used to. A woman used to be behind him like that, and and fit him in socially too, to make all those arrangements, and he rose up in his profession because of her. But women don't recognize it the same way. Now it's all about her and not him. It should be about him. That's truly the true feminism, is supporting a man. But that's prohibited now. You support yourself. See?
We have a question about pornography. What is up with pornography? I'm sure you have an opinion about that.
Oh, it's very bad. It destroys the brain. It makes it smaller. It ruins a family. It destroys the cosmic right brain depreciation of the moment. That's all wrecked in an instant by that dirt coming into the home. It's like an invasion of a violent enemy. It brings strife. 70% of pastors, get this, are into pornography. When their wives discover it, they commit suicide. The wives. This is no small thing. You thought you knew him, but you didn't at all. He's over there being a peeping Tom, and you were over there, doing nice things for your church or whatever. It's extremely disappointing. It's called betrayal trauma. And it's
tell me about it. Tell me about betrayal trauma. Why, like, a man might not be physically and logistically cheating on his wife and embracing the breast of another woman, but he's watching a woman on a screen, getting things done to her, and she's doing things to another man on the screen, but yet the wife will feel betrayed and traumatized as a result of that. Why is that?
Yeah, see, men and women are very, very different. Men are visual. But to a woman, your eyes on another woman is totally cheating. That's just the way we feel. Jealousy is in our DNA. We don't like that. That we find out our husbands looking at naked 16-year-old girls, and we may be 65 or something. That is a total betrayal. And a person would have to, a woman would have to be very callous and dense to not feel that. I have heard of feminist women who even gave their husbands pornography collections. These women are debauched. They're broken. They have broken consciousness. The woman is there to protect the family and the home from evil. That is her function, to keep evil out of the home and to be thorough about it. And here this thing comes in through the computer. On the day of discovery, she finds her husband's been looking at this stuff. It is the worst betrayal that you could possibly imagine. And maybe a man can't empathize with that, but I'm sure many women can.
Yeah. One of the female watchers, Thea, says it's very hard to recover from as a woman. Porn was a major factor in the destruction of my marriage, she says.
Absolutely. It's as bad as having an affair. Okay, the mental. Women see things holistically. The woman wants a man's mind on her breasts. And he's looking at 16-year-old breasts.
Yeah.
This is a terrible affront. Women are whole. They see things in great depth. Emotions as deep as the oceans. It's a terrible thing, and I can understand the suicide rate. It's very high.
And that's something that we never hear about. Women committing suicide. We don't hear that. That's kind of a hush.
Pornography is a silent empire. It's like pedophilia. Okay, we're involving the elite classes. Practically everybody has a pornography collection. You hear about it on television. Pornography is everywhere, so people get curious, and once they're curious, they're hooked. That's how Satan works. And I was going to mention another sitcom, 2.5 Men. Now, Charlie he was a strong man, but very debauched. See, there you had a strong man, but he was, you know, a player and very perverted too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Here we have
yeah.
Here we have a question. Can you talk about dealing with a sexless marriage? Can you comment on that?
It's common, and sometimes marriages are for practical purposes. Sometimes it's better that we be together right now. It's really rough being out there. Everybody's homeless, and you can't get everything in a marriage. A wild sex life and love and romance, especially for older ones. So, and it could be also they both agreed on it too. I have read of saint marriages. They were both saints, and they protected each other's solitude, and they were both celibate and very happily married. And they could not have had that sweet solitude if they were alone, only in the
Right.
marriage. So you see, there are higher things involved sometimes.
Right. Right. How does the modern man, how can a modern man serve God in the world the way that it is, with hundreds of perverted, upside down messages hitting him from every direction, all the inversion? How does a man remain upright today?
I think by being prepared, it's as simple as that. Learning the devices of society to bring him down. And I find a man really attractive who boldly states, this is wrong, this is wrong. You shouldn't have said that. And boldly being a parent in society almost. Against this and explaining why that is a real man. And it's not hard once you know the principles and once you see how dirty it all is. And you see, you were swimming in muddy waters, you got some on you, and it affected your personality for years. But now you see how absurd it all is. You come back freshly endowed with new powers, and you state boldly the case. Now that's a real man. Now you're surrounded by people who think just like you, and there's no more argument.
Let's rewind back to systems theory about how mental illness happens because of our environment, people in our family, the people that we're around. I remember back when I was actually practicing counseling, and I was in practice officially in the state of Pennsylvania. And at that time, I was an assistant director of admissions at a psychiatric hospital, and there were various levels of care. The lowest level of care, which was the lowest amount of reimbursement by an insurance company, was called respite care, where people would come in. It wasn't like a big, heavy therapeutic thing. It was before the 28-day stays for dual diagnosis. But people would come into the psych hospital for respite care, and that was just getting away from a crazy house, getting away from a crazy spouse, getting away from the insanity, and it was actually covered by insurance and reimbursed as respite care.
I can see that absolutely. Systems theory has been around for over 50 years, and people are seeing that you've got to get out of there. That environment keeps you sick. That's the way it is. It's the way the biocomputer hooks to his environment. It's how we think. We're always subconsciously picking up on things through the solar plexus in the stomach, the gut, of what's happening in our environment. Is it unstable? What's this coming at me? What was that remark about? What does she really mean by that? You're not being paranoid. You're simply so adapted to that environment that every little thing means something. If she raises her eyebrow, if she touches her wedding ring, it means it has a universe of meaning,
Yes.
and then there's reactions to that. It's a machine. Definitely. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's how it works.
You
Yeah.
did, and the statement that I extracted from that was our environment can make us sick, which also means that the proper environment can make us well.
Yes. Definitely. It's everything. Man in his environment. An ethologist would never study an animal out of his environment. You always study the animal in his environment. But with man, they don't look at that. See? But when you do, everything makes sense. Suddenly you see why somebody's acting the way he is. Oh, that mom does that then, or this happens then, or that's how you do psychology. Look at man in his environment.
In the old nature shows, they'd say in their natural habitat. Remember that, like Wild Kingdom and that kind of thing.
Well, and in reverse, it's a hero's path on your inner journey to finding who you are. You make your environment reflect your personality, and your personality is enhanced. You use that concept to grow in regards to how you have your own house and environment. So becoming aware of that is really important.
Here we have a question. Does adultery or divorce become the only option for a sexless marriage?
No, that's I don't know much about that, but I don't see that as a problem. I know that everybody sees it as a problem, but I don't, because I tend to look at things practically. As people get older, there really are more important things than thrashing around in bed all day.
Right.
I mean, people are homeless. We're threatened with war, inflation.
Right.
All I think that people are. This generation is so sexualized, and they've been brainwashed to think that if they aren't getting good, that it's a failed marriage. It really is unfair, because many men become there is no sex later on in life because of prostate cancer. This is extremely common, and they become impotent. Does she have a right to leave him? Of course not. You see what I mean? There's things that make it not that important. People still are very happy in marriage. Maybe that's their best friend.
Here's an interesting comment, and I will elaborate on that. But a sexless marriage doesn't mean a touchless marriage. There's
Right.
many ways to comfort and show affection.
That's
other
right.
than, and I love your phrase of thrashing around in bed. I'm probably going to use that in the future somehow, some way. But there are ways of showing romance and affection. Some people say that sex is the glue that holds a relationship together, and I disagree with that. I say romance is the glue, because you're not always going to be able to have sex, and when you get older, there might be no sex. Does that mean the marriage is done?
Absolutely. It's time oriented. I heard an expression: young love is about passion and sex. Old love is about accommodation. So your lives are improved and solve problems for each other, make life better. Sex. That's all they think about. Michael Jackson said that. Everything is sexualized. Everything is about sex. It's kind of funny that he said, but it's true.
It reminds me of the joke that I heard on the movie called What About Bob? That was many years ago with Bill Murray. And I guess, I'm not sure, I think he was the one who went to a therapist or something like that, and the person said, I'm going to draw a picture, and you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. He draws a picture of a tree and says, what do you think of when you see this? And the client says, sex. He draws a picture of a car. He says, what's the first thing you think of when you see this? He says, sex. He draws a picture of a bicycle. What's the first thing you think of when you see this? Client says, sex. And the therapist says, it seems to me that you're obsessed with sex. And the client says, well, you're the one drawing all the dirty pictures.
Yeah, everything is about sex.
Right. What about the phenomenon of 50 Shades of Grey? Now that was purchased by, I don't know, over 100 million women. Women were buying this book.
Women are dirty. One of my books is called Female Carnality. They become dirty. Okay, now, once you've crossed that line from chastity to giving into men, even having sex on the first date, even oral sex, that's happening this is how crazy they've gotten. Once you cross that line, you need more and more, and women are no different. So they're getting worse too. They don't just stay easy, they get perverted too. So they're seeking after this stuff. Sexual addiction works the same for both sexes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a really bad book. It's really taking you over the line. You know, there's a line, but once that line is crossed, a callousness sets in, and it sears your perception, sears your conscience. A saint has a stinging conscience, but once you cross that line, that's gone. There's no more sting to it.
Yeah.
You just accept it all. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we could go forever. We've gone an hour and 16 minutes so far, and it seems like it was 5 minutes. So, Dr. Karen Kellock, will you come back again? And I know we were all over the place tonight with this talk. And I promise next time you're on, we'll kind of stick with a topic, but I just couldn't help but diving into all these topics because you have so much to say about it. Folks, I'd like to I want to say thank you to Dr. Karen Kellock, author of 120 books, PhD in clinical psychology, postdoctorate work. How can people find you? Not logistically, but what can they? Where can they find your books? Where can they find your work?
Google and Amazon. My website is KarenKellock.org. And my other website is called KarenKellockBooks.com. And that is also a radio station, a world chill out station. And KarenKellock.org has the picture strips on the left. That's an artistic discovery.
Excellent.
It's a huge website.
I gotta ask you this one thing. I know you live in a beautiful part of the country. Do you find that your surroundings are inspirational? I mean, when I've seen pictures of things that are in your backyard, it's postcard. Yeah. It's like a postcard. Yeah, what is the effect? How does that affect you?
Oh, I mean, I'm really into beauty, and I am so inspired. Well, I've written most of these books since I've been here. It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. I'm very sensitive to ugliness or disorder or messiness. It's called cerebrotomia. I don't like it, but this is so beautiful, and God has blessed me. That's all I can say. I hope I can deserve it. It's just beautiful.
Magnificent. You know, it's interesting. I recently, I was a fan of Dr. E. Michael Jones, and I just met him recently in person and had some good conversations with him. He actually has a podcast, if people want to Google this, called What the Bleep Happened to Architecture, and how architecture used to be beautiful. Now it's just functional and communist looking. And his latest book is called The Danger of Beauty.
The danger of it.
Yes. And I can't wait to dive into that, because everything that I've read that he has produced so far is on target. He was a professor at Catholic University, and he got fired because he was anti-abortion at a Catholic university.
Oh, that is really hard. It's surrealistic. But that's the way.
Yeah. And after he left the university, he started a magazine called Culture Wars, and that's a very popular book or a magazine right now. It's online, culturewars.com. Absolutely incredible. I love what you said, how you said you're sensitive to ugliness. Holy cow.
Yeah,
I
I
I
hate it.
under,
Yeah.
I understand that.
If somebody's a poor housekeeper, I got to get out of there. I got to get out of there. That's a barometer. I
Yeah.
like order, beauty, cleanliness, simplicity, and just the beauty of God, and just looking out to eternity all day long. Looking out the window is the most beneficial thing you can do, really. Just let your eyes go out to eternity. God's beauty. Yeah.
So, some people say it's literally psychologically helpful to look at a horizon every day.
Yes.
Just look at a horizon. Look at something that doesn't have an end to it, and
Yes. Eternity.
it does something for the brain. I don't know. I forget how they explained it.
Einstein said the most important thing in his studies was, what is eternity? Einstein. That was the most important thing. Eternity. Timeless space. Looking out to timeless space. You know, it's just very evocative.
Yeah, I here we go again. It's so hard to end a good conversation, but I was making a comment the other day about I live not far from the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and you walk into that museum, which is one of the most underrated museums in the world. If anyone hasn't been there, you need to make a trip, even if you need to take a flight and stay in a hotel somewhere and spend 2 days going through the museum. It's absolutely incredible. You walk into that museum and you're surrounded by naked people, naked statues, paintings, but not for 1 second do you think it's dirty.
Exactly.
Not
It's
for one
all
sec. And you just think it's beautiful. There's murals, there's tapestries, there's famous sculptures of naked people, but not for 1 second are you aroused at any of that. It's why
that's
is that?
exactly it. It's attitude. Like I say, everything has become sexualized. It's all an attitude, not the beauty of the human body. If you really thought the body was beautiful, you wouldn't be putting tattoos all over it. The way God made it was beautiful. It doesn't need tattoos. See, we're not supposed to mark ourselves up like the heathen do, the Bible says. God makes you perfect as you are. But that's all been changed. Now everything is sexualized and different. So the body is, oh, you need more things to make it acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I should have been taking notes because I think the sound bites and the phrases tonight, things like I'm sensitive to ugliness, our environments can make us sick. There's too many great quotes to mention right now, but please come back again.
I will.
We'll go deeper into one topic. We'll do a deep dive into something, but I just wanted to introduce Dr. Karen Kellock to the audience tonight. And I know you folks enjoyed this, as evidenced by the chat, and we will have her back. And if there's any topic that you want us to talk about next time, just shoot me an email and let me know, and we'll bring it up next time we have Dr. Karen Kellock on. Karen, thank you so much for joining us. And I know this was spontaneous, and it's 5 years in the making. I just want to say thank you for your time and for the work that you've put in. It's very important, and you are an important voice in this world.
Thank you so much. So are you.
Thank you. See you again soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.